Greetings hobbyists, this is Artisans of Vool, and in this video we're going to have a talk about what MFlow is actually for. So MFlow is part of the nSolve suite, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it comes with nSolve, because while it does have some tools, that's not actually what it's for. Let's start MFlow and actually let's talk through this. So on the thumbnail for this video it says that everything you've been told about MFlow is a lie. And that's kind of true. Even what I've told you, the last video is about nFlow, and I went through some of the functions that it adds, like being able to put vertices on a face, and being able to do really funky quick ways of adding to your topology, but to me, this isn't actually really the purpose of nFlow. This is a set of tools that they've given you, and they've told you some different menu options that have been put together by Team C, and that's kind of not the point of this. And it's not why I'm really excited about this part of the add-on. And I'm really excited about this part of the add-on. Now, before we begin, if you're relatively new to Blender, I would say this probably isn't for you. Maybe even if you're an intermediate level as well. Because the whole point of nFlow is not to be given some potential workflow tools. It's that you can come up with your own workflow menu that works best for you. And if you haven't defined or decided a way that your workflow is basically most productive, this is just going to be a bit of a waste of time. But if you know how you work, this is going to save you a lot of time over the years and just make you have a more efficient workflow by quite a lot. And that is because MFlow is designed for you to create your own workflow systems. Like you've got topology and connect and arrays, we can make something that is our own selection of tools that are very quick and easy to access and can come from anything. Anything in Blender. Anything that's native in Blender, anything from nSolve, and more importantly, anything from any other add-on that we might want to put into this. So I'm going to talk us through some examples and just basically give an idea of how we can make our own menu. This isn't designed to be an exhaustive list because it would just kind of take forever, but just to give you an idea of what you can do, and hopefully I'm going to cover lots of options as we go through this as part of this demonstration. Now the first thing that needs to be said is in the mode that you come into, if I come and press this plus button, we just get given a list of other default options or menu systems that have been given to us by Team C. If we want to make our own, we need to come here, go to display, come to where it says behavior UI and take this off from Tour onto one of the others. And I'm going to select simple. It does everything we need, and we'll see that now this plus has a little arrow under it and we can create a new preset. I'm going to rename this. We do this here. I'm going to call this boxing out. This would be the idea that I would use this as my workflow when I start making a project and I want to just generally box things out. So I'm going to make a menu for that, and then I'd probably have a different menu for adding in detailing and maybe different types of detailing depending on what I'm working on. I can also change where this is. At the moment it's in 3. I'm going to probably put this right at the beginning because this would be my first part of my workflow. I'm also going to put this on so I can have my vertex overlay, but we've got two ways of adding to this menu. Either here and we do everything here, or if we press the N panel and come down to where we've got nFlow, we can set this all up here as well. I'm going to do this by this menu just because it keeps it a bit cleaner so that I can sort of hide this and we can just talk about what we're doing. So let's start. We get this option here and we can add our behaviors to this. But I want to start with the most basic thing, which is I want to be able to select things really quickly, because at the moment if I click, it's moving it. It's not allowing me to basically select. And that's because we're over in nFlow. We haven't got a select option picked, and if we go to select, then we come off of MFlow. So I want to set a select option as my default. So I prefer box select. So the first way we can add something in, you notice it has other options like nFlow options here, and we can sort of scroll down. But I want to add in box select. So I'm going to type in box, and then you'll see that we've got our 3D view select box. So I'm going to click on that, and then that will allow me, you'll notice it's now been added to the menu system that's in the top right hand side, to, if I've got several objects, to left click and box select what I want. Now, if you don't prefer box select, if you prefer something like circle select, you could use select circle, but as I said, I prefer box select. It's my general go-to. So box select it is for me. Now, This has automatically been assigned to the left mouse button because that's what comes in by default. And if we hover over here, this shows us what our selection option is. And at the moment, we don't have Shift, Control, or Alt, which are the main ideas of what you should use. And we can choose left, middle, or right mouse button. So this is just set to left mouse button. And I could have something set to right mouse button if I wanted to. But as I want my right mouse button to bring up my menu here, that's probably not going to be most appropriate. Let's just delete these out. So with that set, what else do I do when I'm boxing out? Well, one of the things I want to be able to do is manipulate this shape. And that includes adding in things like edge loops and stuff like that. So let's look at that. So we're going to come here onto add a behavior, and I want to do a loop cut. And we can add in nFlow loop cut. Now this is then going to turn red because at the moment we've got this set automatically to the left mouse button. And well, if we keep it on the left mouse button, that's going to be a problem because it's already assigned to something. Now we can solve this in two ways. One, at the moment we've got this set to everything. We've actually got this set to everything as well. But if I come here and say that I only want this to work on edges, that's a good start. And then I want to say that I want this to be left mouse button, and let's say Alt. Now, what this means is if I go into edge mode and I come here, you'll notice that I've still got everything as box select. Underneath my mouse it says box select. If I hold down Alt, it now shows me that while doing Alt in the top right hand corner menu, that I can go over something and do a loop cut. And we can see this is going to be where our loop cut is, but it only activates when I go over an edge. If I take my mouse off, no loop cut, put it on, we've got the loop cut. The reason for that is I've told this only work on an edge. So we have the ability to tell nFlow when we want this to work. And at the moment, I've got the preview on. Now the preview is this thing that's doing this really cool sort of graphic that shows me what we're doing here, and I can move from edge to edge, and it shows where this loop cut's going to be. I could actually turn this off if I wanted to, so let's come here and turn that off. And then if I hold my mouse button, it doesn't show it, but I can still click and it adds in those loop cuts really, really quickly. Whereas if I come here and put that back on, I can hold my mouse button down and it shows where this is going on, and I can still click. So I quite like that sort of holographic display. That's pretty cool. Let's get rid of some of those. Now the thing that's really impressive about this is, well, firstly let's go here and select that whole edge, which you know you can do by if you come to the middle of an edge, it just selects that edge. If you come slightly off, it will select that whole sort of edge on that shape. And I'm going to Control and B, and let's do a bevel like that. Now, if we came here and press Alt and click, you know, my loop cut isn't going to go all the way across, and that's because we've got an ngon here. But because of one of the nSolve functions, we can actually do what's called a hard loop cut. So I'm going to come down here, add a behavior, and we're going to add one of these in. And we can, as we said, type things in. We can also click here, and it's got what we've searched up recently. We can filter it through different things. We can go to different operators, and notice this has all of the things from nSolve, box cutter, hard ops, mesh things, transform things, and 3D things. And we've also got the nFlow ones like the draw vertices, build vertices, and the ones that I showed in the last video. So I'm going to go here, let's go to nSolve, and I want to do a hard loop cut. So we'll click that, and we've now put that in just by a different method of selection. Now for this one, we've just got Alt. So for this one, I'm going to have Alt and Shift to do it. And again, I only want it working when I'm on an edge. So now that we've got that set, it turns away from red. And if I come here, it says in the top corner, I can either press Alt and left mouse button to loop cut, or I can Alt and Shift left mouse button to do a hard loop cut. So let's Shift and Alt and then click. And then now we've got, let's click there, our hard loop cut, which you'll note gets none of these ngon problems, and I can put that anywhere I want. So a very useful tool to have. Now we can also do a hard bevel as well. Let's explore the hard bevel. So what we're going to do is set that up, and I want to, let's just add in a behavior, and we're going to come in here and I'm going to type in hard bevel, and there we go. So notice how we're doing this each time in a similar method, and I'm going to start coming up within my own brain that Shift is something that does the hard versions, and I'm going to use Control to do the hard bevel. So let's come to this one, Shift, Control, and left mouse button, and we only want it working on an edge again. Now, we'll notice how quick this is to set up, and now if I select, let's say, this edge, and Shift, Control, and click, we've got our hard bevel, which is so cool compared to a normal bevel because it will just work its way through all of the other geometry really nicely. That's so clever. So that's a lot of the ways that we can add things. Let's look at some more. I'm just going to delete that and bring in a new cube because talking about bevels, we have a slight issue with a bevel. If I just S and then let's say X and scale it on the X axis, the classic issue is if I come in here and I'm going to Control Shift and click and start doing this hard bevel, it's all messed up. And if you know Blender, you know that's because we come to our item, let's go into object mode, and that's because our scale is messed up. We need to apply the scale, let's just undo this, we need to apply the scale so that Blender works properly. And again, not the worst thing in the world, Control and A and apply the scale, but it'd be so much easier if we could do it in one click. Having to go to Control and A and then find it is just a little bit more than I want. I don't like multiple menu systems and it slows us down just a little bit, but it gets annoying over time. So we're going to do something different here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag down and I'm going to come here and we're going to go into our info mode. And this tells us everything that we're doing in Blender at any time. So what I'm going to do is come to this and I'm going to go through the process of scaling this. Control and A, scale, and it's applied the scale, and this is how Blender recognizes that. So I'm going to right click and then copy it. I could have also just pressed Control and C. Let's just drag this all the way up. Let's come here, add a behavior, and I'm going to press Control and V, hit enter, and now we've pasted that in there. I'm going to set this to be right mouse button and Control, let's say. And we only need this working when we're clicking just basically on an empty space because we're not going to be doing this in edit mode. So let's try that again. Let's S and then Y, and we've messed up the scale. But now if I press Control and right mouse button, it should apply the scale, but it doesn't. Why not? Well, that is because at the moment we've got our selection as override, and at the moment when I click over here, I'm not clicking on anything. We don't want to select something over here, we want to keep it working off this. So let's come back here, and our selection modes, we have various options. What I want to do is keep the selection I've already got. So now, if I Control and right mouse click, we've applied the scale. I can S, Control and right mouse click, scale, S and then Z, right mouse click. It's like literally instant. It's so much quicker than the menu system. How awesome. Now, very rarely in boxing out, but sometimes I will also scale it, so let's scale it on the y-axis, and then rotate it, and I want to apply both. Now, this is a rarity, but it does happen, so let's put something in for that. Now, you'll notice here, on my menu system, it says Control right mouse button is to apply the object transform. And that's not quite what we're doing. We're just doing the scale. If I Control and right mouse click, we just applied the scale, but you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, this has a whole lot of other things that we could do, and we could click on them to basically apply them. So, firstly, I want this to be clear what it's doing. So let's come back here, come to our scaling, click here, and I want to give it a custom name. So I'm going to call this apply scale. Now, that's put this into our menu system the way we want it named. Box select was already pretty good, but this is applying the scale. I also want to do one though that's going to apply the scale and rotation. So let's just click add behavior. I'm going to Control and V to paste that in again, and instead of it just being Control and click, we're going to have this as Control Shift and click. And we'll set everything up in the same way, keep, and we've got that ready to go. Let's call this apply rotation and scale. Maybe actually let's make this a bit shorter so it takes up less space. And we're good to go, except for, at the moment, I haven't changed the function. If I rotate this a bit more, and then let's S and then Y and Y, if I press Control Shift and then left mouse button, oh, I actually want that to be right mouse button, so it's like the other one. So Control Shift and right mouse button, I've applied the scale, but not the rotation. Well, that's because, well, we copied and pasted the same thing. And you'll notice here that we've got a lot of text that says what's going on. I could start fiddling around with having to type in text, but we don't need to. If I go to Edit Operator Arguments, this tells us all of the things that this is doing. It is applying the scale, It's not applying the rotation, it's not applying the location. So I'm just going to select rotation, turn that to true. Hit enter, click OK, and now let's just scale it on the x-axis, and Control Shift and right mouse button, we've applied the rotation and we've applied the scale. So we've got those both working. And now whatever I change, whatever I want to do, I can do that quickly. Or I could have this so it's just, let's come here, just apply rotation. Let's edit the operator arguments and turn the scale to false. Because it's not going to take long, if I think about it, to go SY like that, and then R like that. I can control and right click and control and shift and right click, and it's done both of them that way. So maybe it's easier to have them separated. That's sort of your choice. So now that we've got that going, let's just mesh and bring in a cube again. Let's end hide the end panel so it's a little bit easier. We've got the functions that I generally use for boxing out. Importantly, I can go to edge mode, select this edge here, Control Shift and click, and do a hard bevel, something like that. But sometimes I might want to come back and modify this. At the moment, we've only used things from nFlow, nSolve, and general things that work in Blender. Let's use something from another add-on. And I want to be able to select these faces, or let's go into face mode, select these faces, and I want to be able to use a really cool function that's in Mesh Machine. And if I press Y and go to refuse, I can start changing things about this bevel. And I press T to start changing the tension, the profile of it. So I want to be able to set this on my menu. Going to Y and then refuse is annoying. And what's really cool is I know that normally Control Shift and left mouse button is to do a bevel, specifically a hard bevel. But I can actually set this up. Let's add a behavior. We're going to set this up to work off of this refuse. So what I'm going to do is press Y, come to refuse, and all I'm going to do is hold my mouse over it and press Control and C. And then we've copied this refuse option. So I'm going to come in here, Control and V, hit enter, and it's pasted that in. So that's another way we can select a function. We can literally just find it, copy it, and paste it in. And I'm going to select that I want this to work on a left mouse button. I want it to work on Control and Shift, and as opposed to the bevel, which only works on an edge, I'm going to tell this to only work on a face. So we've got exactly the same, if we just come to the hard bevel, Control Shift and left mouse button, but working on an edge, and here, Control Shift left mouse button, but working on a face. Now, if I try and do this here, Control Shift and left mouse button, this isn't going to work because it then tries to select the thing I've clicked on. Let's just come in and select all of these again. So we need to once again change this option of override to keep. With that on, I can Control Shift left mouse button as long as I'm on a face. Notice how it changes. You can see this on the menu underneath the mouse. If I put it over the edge, it's going to hard bevel. If I put it over the face, it's going to refuse. How cool is that? So click there, and we once again have it come up for a second, but I have to keep my mouse on it. I have to keep pressing down, and then as soon as I release, it stops. So how do I stop that? Well, we come here, and this after button basically says, select the elements after releasing the mouse, not with holding it down. So that's what this after button is for. Now, if I put my mouse over the face, and then Control Shift and click, you'll notice it's there, and it stays there. So that covers what our after button is for. It basically says, how do we want to keep the selection? Do we want to click and hold down, or do we want to click once and release? So that now gives me a really long list of tools that I want here. Some of them that work in object mode, some of them that are working in edit mode. And either way, we've got the option to come here, let's Control Shift and click, and do a hard bevel. But I could also, let's say, select all of these, go to a face, Control Shift and click, and it's going to allow me to refuse that and change those bevel options. Look how powerful this is as a tool. I can go to this edge here and then Control Shift and left mouse button, and I get the hard bevel coming in. This is so cool. So we're really bringing all the best functions together that we want. Now, one final thing that I wanted to mention is this is also useful for another reason. Now, this isn't going to affect me massively, but if I Shift and A, mesh and bring in a cube, and Shift and D, one of the most common things that I use is to click and then press Control and plus to boolean two objects together. Now, when I say Control and plus, the issue with that is that plus is on the number pad. And if you don't have a number pad, you have to start going through some long, tedious options that's really annoying. So the other way this could be useful is I might want to add in this boolean, one, to stop me having to take my hand off my mouse to press plus, but also because otherwise this is quite tedious. So with that in mind, let's shift click and I'm going to press shift and 2. So this brings up ND, another add-on that has boolean options. I could also do this with Q and do this through the boolean options there. It's entirely up to you how you want to do this. I'll just do it with ND, so shift and 2 and then boolean. I'm choosing this because it comes with Blender for free, and we'll do a union boolean, control and C to copy that, come here, and then let's control and V to do that, and then hit enter. Then we can come here. What buttons do I want this to be on? Well, firstly, we only want this to work when I'm not actually on anything. So let's get rid of all of that. I'm going to need to keep the selection, otherwise it's not going to work. And I want to call this, let's say, union. And then I'm going to have this as being right mouse button and let's say Alt. So that way, now I can click, click, Alt, right click, and we've booleaned it together. And now that means I don't have to worry if I don't have a number pad. I mean, this is such a brilliant boon to Blender. Being able to set up your own workflow if you know what tools you commonly use at a stage of your workflow is beautiful. I could set one up for detailing and so on, but well, I kind of need to save this. So how do I do that? Well, what I do is come here and I just want to export my current configurations. So I'm going to click that, and then in my files, I'm just going to give this a name. So let's call this boxing out at this point, and click export config. This has now been saved. So I can go to file, new, just general, not going to bother saving this. And if I come into MFlow over here, or Alt and 4 and then MFlow, we haven't got that, but I can come here and import from my files, boxing out, and it gives me the options of what to bring in. So at the moment it has all of those options that I had available at the time that I exported this. So I can get rid of the ones that I don't want, click import, and I've just got boxing out here, and now that menu's there. And if I make other ones all at the same time, we've got those ready to go. And if I really don't want to have to import this each time, well, I'm just going to file and then save this as a startup file, and it will already be present. So this is how we can use nFlow to not just add in someone else's workflow system, but to make your own and to make it perfect for you. Hopefully you're as excited about that as I am. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you like me and think this is awesome? Or is this something where you're like, yeah, kind of fun, but who cares? To me, I think if you know your workflow, this is going to be able to make you create your perfect work set that you'll be able to use very quickly. And what's great about this is the menu system means that even if you forget those shortcuts, it's got it all there for you. You never need to have worried about memorizing a shortcut again. It's all there. And then you'll basically just learn it over time as you get used to doing it. Once again, I think this is great. As always, if you found this useful, please hit the like button. It means other people can find the video more easily, and I really appreciate it. If you want more videos like this, hit the subscribe button and that bell icon so you know when I'm putting out more videos. And if you want videos a week ahead of time and ad-free, there's a Patreon page linked in the description, and it really helps to support the channel a little bit more. Have a great day, guys.